It's time for a new perspective with your host, Pastor Mike Sherbino. A word to the wise from someone who's been pastoring people in churches for a whole lot of years. This is the Sunday special edition, but you may be watching on another day because Mike's message isn't only for Sundays, but for every day. Mike brings a host of people together to talk about the complexities of this life, of being a Christian in a world that seems to be going in reverse sometimes. But most importantly, a comfort for your heart, mind, and soul, because that's exactly what Jesus wants for you. From one of his mighty churches just outside of Toronto, here's Mike Sherbino.
We're really glad you're with us today on The Perspective, and Mitch Hunter is co-hosting with me today. Thanks, Mitch.
Yeah, of course, Mike.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
The young and the famous, or the famous and the old? I don't know how it goes, but sometimes we got to navigate the complexities of life.
That's right.
And one of the exciting things that God has given to us is an opportunity to be his presence and his light.
Mm-hmm.
I love that opportunity. I love the many different ways that we have the privilege of encountering the culture around us.
Well, absolutely, Mike. And so many times people think that the only people who represent the church or religion, as some people say, is pastors or priests or however people think about that. But the reality is God has people who are faithfully following him in all sectors and in all industries around the world.
We're going to talk to one of those people today. Mayor Dan Carter is with us. He's the mayor of Oshawa. Excited that he found time to be with us. And I just want to welcome you, Mayor Carter, to the program today.
Thank you very much. It's great to be able to be with you. Don't you think that Mitch has the perfect hockey name? It is like the perfect hockey name ever.
If you change my last name a little bit, you get pretty close to an existing player.
It's great. Right. It's great to be with both of you. Thank you for the opportunity to join you today.
Well, I'm glad. Not normally do the guests jump in right away and take the show, but you have at it, man. That's just awesome. Mayor Carter, we were talking about something prior to the program, Mitch and I, about the purpose for which we were created. Mm-hmm. And down deep, I don't believe there's a man or woman that at some point doesn't ponder the question, what on earth am I doing here? What is it all about? And I know that you believe you were put on earth for something really special. I wonder if you could talk to us about that, because the road for you certainly has not been easy.
Mike, I really appreciate the question. I think the bottom line is that I do a presentation called Either Prepared or Punished. And I think a lot of us kind of look at our lives that way. We go through hardships, we go through changes, challenges, we lose friends, we lose people that we love through death. We have events that happen in our lives, and sometimes I think we look at it as being punished for something. And it took me a long time, based upon my own personal journey, especially being an addict, which I struggle with alcohol and drugs. But prior to that, a lot of different events happened, being raped when I was very young, a learning disability, my brother being killed when I was 13, then my sister's suicide in 2000. Wow. And I really looked at things. Why am I being punished? When it was my pastor that really got me to kind of look into the lens and kind of say to myself, are you being punished, Danny? Or are you being prepared? Mm-hmm. And I think once I did that, I think it gave me almost a sense that now I understand why I went through this journey. And I think for many of us, we always look at it as, why is this happening to us? Instead of maybe God's preparing us to be able to serve. And if you think about the role that I have right now, at a time that we are facing many different crises in our community, we have a national health crisis, we have a national health issue, we have mental illness and addiction that is on our streets. You look at that and I think to myself, how well am I prepared for this moment to be able to serve my community? And I think that God had a plan, and I think that he finally let me into the plan about 20 years ago, and I think that I'm well prepared and well positioned to be able to meet the challenges.
Wow.
Mayor Carter, I want to just say something though. You rattled off a number of key things, from addictions to the death, the suicide of your sister, the death of your brother. Boom, boom, boom. How did you handle those things? It sounds like you're running into the front of a snowplow every time.
Well, I'll be very honest with you. I didn't handle it well. As a young child, I lost my family, my biological family, because my mother had passed away and I was put into foster care. I had a severe learning disability when I was younger, and I still even struggle with it today, my dyslexia, and I work on it very, very difficult. Being raped as a 7-year-old and really coming to terms that I never spoke until I was 31. My brother's death when I was 13. And that's where I turned to drugs and alcohol, really to kind of lessen the pain, but really become the person that I thought I wanted to be, which was funny, charismatic, smart, intelligent, all those kind of things. I don't think I balanced it well. I think that the reality being is that I struggled all the way right up to the age of 31 until I was able to be in a program that helped me talk about those issues and really come to terms with those issues. Still not understanding why Dan Carter had to go through those events, and I would wish them upon no one. But 31 years later, I think I have a better perspective in regards to why I went through them. I wish it upon no one, but I think that I learned a great deal out of it.
Mayor Carter, that's such a difficult thing that you're unpacking to, and the phrase you used, am I being punished? Or as your pastor said, are you maybe being prepared? And so often when we go through difficult things, it's unfathomable that this might be eventually used for good. And often I don't want to go through difficult things. Many people at home, of course, nobody wants to go through a difficult time. And yet you are a living example of how God can use that for good. But in the moment, that doesn't seem true. So what would you say to somebody who might be being not punished, but right now prepared? What would you say to them?
I think we do have to understand that we have to go through that process that is a natural process, the anger, the fear, all of the questioning. I think all of us will go through it. And I think that we have to allow us to be able to go into that. So I think that's number one. And I think for Christians, that's very difficult. At sometimes they leap from a really painful experience to leaping directly to God and trying to just come to terms that this is God's wish. I think you have to allow people to have that period of time where they have to absorb what happened. They have to really kind of come to terms with it. But they also, and because they're believers and because their faith plays such an important part, I think that's where pastors and our church play an important part in helping us realize what we're going through and realizing that we're not going through it by ourselves. But more importantly is I think it's a self-realization that somewhere down the line, we find a purpose in regards to this event that's happening. We have examples of this all across the world. If you look at the mass shootings in the United States, you see parents that have lost children and they become great advocates. They become great speakers. They see political change. They see activism happening. It really is a wonderful thing to be able to see it as such tragedies. Some great things happen because people are awakened to it. But we have to allow people that period of time to be able to kind of go through the natural process of grieving and really hurt and be angry. It's okay. God's okay with us. It's okay for us to go, God, this is how I feel. I feel like, why is this happening to me? What are you doing? And I think that when we're able to have that, I think we can come to terms with it. But it also takes a lot of people to help us through that.
Mayor Carter, you weave the God word into your story. And I know that you are a man of great faith, a follower of Jesus Christ. When did that intersection happen? When did you realize that you had a need for that personal friendship with God?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I grew up in the church. I went to a Presbyterian church. My parents were born in 1915. So being part of the church was really a foundational piece because of their era of growing up. I'll be honest with you, from about I would say 1973 to about 2000, my attendance at church was rare. And I think that really struggling with all of those events happened. What happened for me, Mike, was when my sister committed suicide and she took her life. And that was devastating. Maureen was the one that saved my life. And my sister didn't suffer from addiction or mental health or any of those issues. And it was really a devastating time for me. And I struggled with it. I never picked up a drug or a drink or anything else like that. But I really struggled at it because it was Maureen that saved my life. And I went to my pastor, Pastor Doug Snyder at the Embassy Church in Oshawa here, to try and really understand what I was going through. And I was really struggling with that. And I think that what he challenged me to do was a couple of things. One is he said, "Did you read your Bible?" And I said, "No, I'm dyslexic, so it's hard for me on the Old Testament." And he gave me the message. And he said, "I want you to read this every day. And you and I are going to meet once a week, and we're going to talk about it." And one of the biggest things that came out of those conversations one is he allowed me this self-discovery about where my faith was and what I was going through and kind of helped me through that, navigated it. He was a great tour guide. And then he said to me, I said to him one day, I said, boy, oh boy, I got to be honest with you. You know, the people that hung out with Jesus, boy, oh boy, they were like really broken people. And he said, Danny, why do you think that is? And I said, I don't know, but I mean, like, you know, tax people and murders and like, this is really bad. And he said, could you relate to perfection? And I said, oh, no, of course not. He said, now think about that. I think it clicked on me. I went, oh, so I do believe. As broken as I am, as imperfect as I am, redemption, forgiveness, love, all of that was still awaiting. And I think that was one of those moments that really his way of kind of really helping me with the self-discovery aspect, I think really helped me come back to my faith and really see that God was playing a significant role in my life. But it also gave me an opportunity to be part of that family, because I always believed that the brokenness that I had, the addiction I went through, the hardship that I put my family and my friends through, the relationships that I destroyed, all of those things were not forgivable. And I think what happened was that was one of those realizations that I realized that, wow, I guess God still does love me, and there is purpose to my
So
life.
good. Mayor Carter, stay with us. We're going to be right back to unpack what some would say is even the more exciting part of the story. Though your story is amazing, it gets even better because we're going to bring in that little word that's called politics. Stay with us, folks. We're going to be right back.
For those of us who follow Jesus, we have a book. It isn't a theology book. It isn't a rule book. This book is a story. The story of God and humanity. A story Jesus said he was fulfilling. This book contains poems, riddles, letters, puzzling narratives, and new ideas. Yet, throughout it all, this book is full of the breath of God. For those of us who follow Jesus, this book is a treasure. This book is a tree of life. This book is a page turner. Turn the page with us.
Well, we're here with Mayor Dan Carter from the city of Oshawa. Mayor Carter, just over a year ago, you were elected to be mayor, and what an incredible privilege, what a great accomplishment. We're excited for you. It just seems to be the polar opposite of the direction of life you once started in. How did it all happen, and what nudged you to take this step?
I guess, well, first and foremost, I think that I understood that I was being prepared. And I think that understanding that I wanted to serve in one way, fearful of being a broken individual and putting my name on a ballot. So I first put my name on a ballot in 2014 and ran as a regional and city councilor. I was successful. I was very blessed there. The mayor at the time in 2018 came to me and said, I need you to run for mayor. And I said, I don't know if I'm ready. And he said, I'm not asking, I'm telling. And we were successful at almost getting 70% of the vote count at that time. And then in this last election, we received 65%. So it really came down to is I think that others saw something in me that truly believed that as imperfect as I was, that I was to be the leader of our community at that particular time. And I'm very fortunate that they saw something in me that I didn't see for myself.
Wow. So Mayor Carter, what I'm curious about is you are a self-proclaimed Jesus follower. And you are also the mayor of a major city around Toronto, one of the bigger cities in Ontario. My question is, how do you merge these things? Because we've got religion and politics, two things that we say never talk about. And I don't know if you can combine them or what even happens if you do that. How do you make sense of that? How does your faith influence your role in politics, or does it?
I think you just have to be public about it. I think people have to just understand that this is a component, a foundational piece in my life. Some days I'm a great Christian, and some days I'm not a great Christian, and I have to work at it. And I'm an imperfect being, but I try and work at it as best as I can. But I've been very public. When I first got elected in as mayor, the big thing that I did is I had my pastor there, and I also had my Bible, and I made sure that when I took the oath of office, that was front and center. And it's never been an issue. People don't, I haven't been challenged on it. And I think people just understand it. I go to the embassy, I go to other churches. I enjoy my faith. It's a very personal journey to me, and it's something that's really important to me and my family.
Well, along with what you're doing as mayor, you have another passion that's very close to the Children's Treatment Center. I'd love for you to
Yeah.
tell me about that and tell our viewers, because it's a great opportunity for them to participate.
First of all, it's in Cornwall, and it's an incredible story when you think about it. The Children's Treatment Center was a center that was created about 27 years ago by a gentleman that used to work for the Children's Aid and started this organization, Angelo, that started it. And they help about 150 children a year that have been sexually abused, and it's based upon private donations and corporate donations. They don't get government funding at all, and they provide these services to about 150 children a year. It's an incredible story when you look at the organization itself, how it raises its money, how it's brought the community of Cornwall together, how it's brought every type of politician to the table, emergency services, faith communities, all coming together to be able to support these children. It's an incredible, incredible organization. And I'm going to urge everybody, as if you can, look up the Children's Treatment Center in Cornwall, Ontario, learn more about it. And it's a marvelous, marvelous place that has dedicated people that are doing incredible work. And I was blessed to be introduced to it about 6 years ago. And I'm just blown away by what they do each and every day.
So here's a different question. We're just about finished with our time, and we could simply talk for about another hour. The busyness of the day. What's your rhythm for each day, from your personal time with God to dealing with all of the corporate issues that come at you?
It's got to be purposeful. Because I'm an addict. Everything has to be structured to me. So I get up at a certain time. There's certain aspects. I have to work out every day. I have to pray every day. I have to eat well, and I have to sleep well. And I make sure that that's a structural piece of my day. My Bible is on my desk. If you come to meet me, my Bibles are sitting right on my desk. Matter of fact, it's open to one of my favorite passages, which is Luke 10, chapter 30 to 37, about the Good Samaritan. And that to me is a part of what I have to do. I need those quiet times, both at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. And, one of the questions people always get is, how do you make sure that the core beliefs that you have and the political decisions you have to make, how do you balance those two in regards to it? And the reality being is, when you are trying to do the right things for the right reasons, I think you're directed in the right direction. And I'm authentic. It is a struggle to deal with difficult issues, but I try and make sure that my core belief stands front and center. It may go opposite in regards to what some people think, but I feel comfortable in defending that position because I start my day that way, because I finish my day that way, and because of the reason that I understand that I do not walk alone, that this is a journey that I've been blessed with, and my life has been saved for a purpose. And I'm a great believer that God has put me in this position at this particular time because of the complexities of our world today.
Wow. Mayor Carter, our time is up. I just want to thank you for articulating that, giving us a little glimpse into your own journey. Your transparency is just huge for us as we listen and as we process. And our prayer and our encouragement is with you to keep running the race. Thanks for being with us today.
I wish you only very, very best success. Thank you both for the opportunity to join you today.
Thank you so much. Everybody stay with us. We'll be right back.
This extraordinary ripple effect that we see, how this gift has not only transformed the person's life who got the chair, but the family members, the caregivers, the whole community. Maybe now the mother can go and get a job because she doesn't need to stay home and take care of her child all day. Right now, more than ever, those living with disabilities in developing countries urgently need our support. With your help, we can change lives, one person at a time. Together, we can provide the transforming gift of mobility. Together, we can make this world a better place.
Well, we've just come out of our time with speaking with Mayor Carter of Oshawa. And Mike, there were just so many things that were shared. And first of all, wow, I'm just blown away by his story. I think when you start to unpack that and you start to think, he lost his brother in a motorcycle accident, he lost his sister to suicide, he experienced sexual assault at an early age, dyslexia, homelessness, addictions, all these things, Mike. And
there wasn't much more to add to the list.
Oh, absolutely. Any one of those is enough to ruin a person. And so you think of that, and there's that part of the story. It's incredible for us to be able to see, wow, look how his life has been transformed. On the other side of all that, he's now the mayor of a major city. And I love the phrase he used, you're not being punished, you're being prepared.
Yeah. And as I think about punished versus being prepared, there's another word, and it starts with a P as well. It's called perspective.
Right.
It is so easy to see, the glass half empty, that everybody is against me.
Absolutely.
And that is not true, because the Bible says, God is for us. And we can see how God was shaping him, bringing him through. He could have been a very bitter person, and justifiably so. But he chose not to. And I think of that person that was a pastor, but it could have been anyone who said, no, I'm going to sit with you and I'm going to help you. I'm going to walk with you through. So incredible people that came into his life, even though important people were ripped out of his life. And what a great story.
Absolutely.
We're glad you're with us today on The Perspective. I'm going to be right back with more. The powerful story that we've just heard from Mayor Carter is just one of many stories that we've told on The Perspective of how God has met people and changed their lives and given them incredible hope. Will you help me to share that hope? The reality here in Canada is that 40% of people don't watch television in the old-fashioned way. This live stream, it's on their screen. They want to be able to download it. They watch YouTube. I need your help so that we can advance into that whole marketplace to share stories like Mayor Carter and so many other stories of God changing people's lives. If you go to theperspective.tv, there's a place where you can become a monthly partner to help me in this journey to shape and change the whole climate of our country. Will you stand with me? I hope you will. Thank you. One of the things I've been thinking about with the Apostle Paul and talking about joy is, how do I hold on in those tough times? Right now the water is beautiful, it's calm. Yeah, it's a little too cold for me to get in, but you know what? In another month, that's all going to change. But the calmness is wonderful, it's very soothing, it's relaxing. And I've discovered that that's what happens when I lay hold of the promises of God. Something happens when you start to read this book and you let it permeate into your heart. It's almost like marinating a steak. Sometimes we've bought some meat and it's been like tough old leather. But when my wife creates the marinade and it stays in for long enough, sometimes overnight, put it on the barbecue and it's just great. You know what holds me though? It's coming back to the things that equip me and prepare me for those moments when there's never enough marinade to go around. And that is the promises of God. Paul knew the promises. He understood them. He knew the reality of saying, God, I'm going to hold you at your word. And I want to share with you just a couple promises that have steadied my life when the storms have come. And this is the time to prepare for the storm when you're in the calm. My brother once said, the time to prepare for a crisis is before it hits. And how are you preparing yourself right now? Here's one of the promises that I love. It's found in Psalm 46, verses 1 and 2. And the psalmist writes, he said, God is my refuge and strength. He's a present help in time of trouble. I love that. I can hardly ever quote that verse without my hands going, yeah, he's my refuge and strength. He is my strong tower. I can hold on to God, and I know that when I seem like I've lost my grip, he is holding on to me. A great radio preacher once quoted it this way. He said, God is our refuge and strength, not just a present help in time of trouble, but he said, just in the nick of time, just in the nick of time. And I've discovered that God is never in a hurry, but he is never late. There have been times I have wondered, God, why don't you show up? Why don't you show up? And then I go to Psalm 46 to the end of it, verse 10, where it says, Michael, be still and know that I'm God. Be still. Oh, you know what? I can be still when I'm by the water. It just kind of relaxes me. But the problem is I have that tendency, like most of you, to get back up and just be going at high speed. God calls us to be still. It doesn't mean being inactive, but it means quietening ourselves in the presence of God so we can hear His voice. And sometimes I'm saying, God, what was that all about? Help me to understand what you're saying. Likely some of you are there today and you're wondering, God, what's it all about? Well, I want you to know He's not only our refuge and strength, but if I jump to the New Testament for a moment, you know, the New Testament, there's so many promises that I've laid hold of, but I love what Jesus said to His disciples in John 14, verse 27. He said, peace I give you, not as the world gives, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. How good is that? He said, peace I give you. It's a gift. And in the midst of your situation today, you have a choice. It's what I've been teaching out of the book of Philippians. Joy is a choice. You have to choose joy. And in the same breath, I need to choose peace. Say, God, I'm going to accept your peace. If you're His child today, He gives you grace so that you can know His peace. It was the peace that carried Jesus to the cross. And as we think about the cross, you know, we look down the lake and there's the beach. It almost is like the future as we look down there saying, I'm not sure what's going to be around the corner. And that's right. We don't know what's around the corner, and neither do I. But here's what we do know. It's what Paul wrote in Romans chapter 8 and verse 28. He said, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, to those who are called according to His purpose. So as I am walking with God, even if the good doesn't seem so good to me at that moment, I know that God has a perfect plan and He is making it happen. And that's a confidence that He wants you to have, just as the confidence He's given me. But every day I need to choose. You know what I have to choose? I have to choose to get in the book. You know, if I go on yesterday's food, it's kind of stale. But every day I need to find a fresh promise. And here's another one. Here's one you can take to the bank. It's what Jesus said through the words of Peter. In 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7, he said, you can cast your care on me, for I care for you. So can I ask you this question? What are you going to do with the promises of Jesus? What are you going to do with what He's been saying to you? You can accept it. What do you have to lose if you don't accept it? But if you do, I'm going to tell you this, He will never fail you or forsake you. And to the one who calmed the storms, the one who walked on the water, He's saying right now, there can be peace in your life as you learn to cast your care on me. I want to invite you to do that today. Just say, Lord Jesus, I want to cast my care on you. Will you be my leader and Lord? Will you be my Savior to forgive me for my sins? And when you say that prayer and mean it from your heart, guess what? Guess what? He always says yes. And He's there to welcome you home today.